Hello everyone, hope you're well. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Craig and this is Wookie Video Presents, the channel that just absolutely loves vintage science fiction, horror and fantasy movies. Today we are hopping into the cinematic time machine and heading back to a truly monumental year. Now the world remembers it as a year of unprecedented heatwaves in the UK, Steve Jobs launched an Apple from his family garage, and Jimmy Carter became the 36th president of the United States. Disco and punk started to take hold of the music industry, but it was also a year of absolute cinematic masterpieces. I'm talking glorious rubber suit monsters and brilliant B-movie slime. We're talking about 1976. But here is the twist. While audiences were sitting in theatres devouring these classics, behind the scenes directors were out in the mud, the sand and the sweat, filming a revolution that would change cinema forever. So grab a cold drink, pull your sofa right up to the telly, and let's blow this 1976 vault wide open. So let's kick this off with the filming of Dino de Laurentiis' big budget remake of King Kong, which was underway filming from the 15th of January in Hawaii and would complete in August and was promising to be the fantastic treat for the eyes, featuring Jeff Bridges and a then unknown debut performance from Jessica Lange. Would it live up to its hype? Well, we'd have to wait and see until Christmas of '76. Exciting times. Other notable information is around that very time, directors George Lucas and Brian De Palma were sharing a casting space, meaning many actors including Sissy Spacek, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Amy Irving and William Catt read lines for parts in both Star Wars and Carrie. Now imagine how some of that might have turned out. So March 1976 landed with a hypnotic science fiction masterpiece, Nicholas Roeg's The Man Who Fell to Earth, starring the legendary David Bowie. It's surreal, it's a bit avant-garde, and honestly, nobody else on the planet could have played this role. The film follows Thomas Jerome Newton, an extraterrestrial who crash lands on Earth from a drought-stricken planet to find a way to ship water to his dying species. Did you know that Bowie was deep into his Thin White Duke era and arrived on the New Mexico set with a massive trunk filled with hundreds of books? He was so intensely focused on reading that he barely spoke to the crew during takes, keeping himself completely isolated and genuinely alien-like for the role. But while Bowie was falling to earth over in the deserts of Tunisia, George Lucas was already getting ready to head to a galaxy far, far away. March 1976 is the exact month principal photography began on that little gamble called Star Wars. Anybody heard of it? Lucas was battling malfunctioning droids and a freak sandstorm that nearly wiped out the sets. Talk about a hectic month there. June 76 was an absolute blockbuster explosion for genre fans. First we got Amicus Productions' At the Earth's Core, starring Doug McClure and Peter Cushing, who was also appearing in Star Wars of that year.
Grand scale adventure from the world's favorite writer of fascinating fiction, Edgar Rice Burroughs' At the Earth's Core.
Telepathic flying monsters and giant rubber suits. It was pure Saturday afternoon matinee joy. The sad thing is, it was about to get dated very, very quickly. Then science fiction went slick and dystopian with Logan's Run. It was the disco era, and we're talking flowing bias-cut chiffon, sheer tunics, flashing lights, and a world where you aren't allowed to live past 30. Shit, that's me well and truly screwed. Did you know the massive Dome City wasn't a Hollywood studio set? Well, the crew actually took over the Apple Tree Center, which was a brand new cutting-edge shopping mall in Dallas, Texas, and filming entirely at night using its futuristic glass elevators. And just 2 days after Logan's Run hit theatres and the famous blistering heatwave was unleashed here in the UK, the box office provided something to chill your bones. And I'm not talking about air-conditioned cinemas. I'm talking about the ultimate tale of religious dread. It's Richard Donner's The Omen. The story of an American diplomat and his wife who adopted a devil child and may have had its inspirations in The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby, but it certainly did have its own vibe. Did you know? Remember the terrifying scene where the baboons frantically attacked the car in the safari park? Well, these animals weren't acting. To get that primal fury, the crew secretly hid a live, fully grown alpha male baboon on the floorboards inside the car. The baboons outside went completely wild protecting their territory, and actress Lieberman's look of absolutely terror is 100% genuine panic. I love The Omen, and it has some genuinely creepy scares. It's a brilliant cast, and of course, there's Jerry Goldsmith's score. But I've also thought the plot was a little bit hokey and definitely would have suited the Hammer Studios. What are your thoughts on The Omen? Meanwhile, while audiences were fleeing the cinema from Damascus and Damien, May and June of '76 also saw Steven Spielberg sweating bullets inside of a massive abandoned World War II aircraft hangar in Alabama, secretly building the alien landing site for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Moving into the heat of July, we find some hidden gems. First, the incredible Spanish thriller Who Can Kill a Child? A sun-drenched nightmare about an island where the adults have all vanished and the children have formed a murderous cult. It is gritty, atmospheric and deeply unsettling. And then, the definitive 1976 nature run amok creature feature, it was Jeff Lieberman's Squirm.
Squirm. They came from everywhere.
Millions of flesh-eating earthworms laying siege to a town? Well, it was later to become pure video shop gold. Did you know they used millions of real live bloodworms shipped in from Maine? But here's the crazy bit. The practical makeup effects artist who had the lovely job of designing how these worms burrowed into human flesh was none other than a young Rick Baker, right before he became a household name. And guess who else was out in the scorching summer heat of 1976? It was Dario Argento. He was in Germany and Italy shooting his neon-soaked Technicolor horror masterpiece Suspiria, forcing his crew to use obsolete Technicolor film stock to get those intense bleeding red hues. We close out the theatrical year with two titans. In November, Brian De Palma finally delivered Stephen King's first adaptation, Carrie. Filmed between May and July of that year, Sissy Spacek is absolutely mesmerising, leading up to that infamous tragic prom scene. Did you know that final heart-stopping jump scare where the blood-stained hands shoot out from the grave? Well, it was entirely filmed backwards. De Palma wanted an uncanny dreamlike quality, so Sissy Spacek buried herself in a real grave box and pulled her hand down and they flipped the footage in reverse. How amazing is that? And finally, just before Christmas, Dino De Laurentiis dropped his massive star-studded remake of King Kong. Did you know that Dino spent millions building a fully mechanical 40-foot-tall animatronic Kong? But on set, the giant robot was a complete disaster because it short-circuited left, right and centre and leaked hydraulic fluid everywhere. And in the final movie, that multi-million-dollar robot is only on screen for about 15 seconds. The rest is Rick Baker working double shift in 1976 with a magnificent gorilla suit. I have a huge soft spot for King Kong 1976. I loved it as a kid and just adored Jessica Lange. There's something that remains endearing about this version. Okay, it isn't as iconic and as celebrated as much as Kong 33, but this certainly has its moments of iconic imagery. I adore it, I really do, and John Barry's gorgeous score is something to behold. Love it or hate it, it is a classic. And as the snow started to fall in late '76, Wes Craven was out in the freezing desert dust of the Mojave, shooting a raw independent survival horror called The Hills Have Eyes. While a broke David Lynch was literally delivering newspapers on a bicycle at night just to fund the final frames of Eraserhead. So what a year 1976 gave us. Everything from the psychological terrors to rubber-suited monsters, all while secretly acting as a cradle for the greatest science fiction and horror revolution in history. But the writing was on the wall. The desert sands of Tunisia were about to blow across the entire globe because just around the corner, a little movie called Star Wars was about to change the world of cinema and pop culture forever. But that is a story for another video. Do let me know your thoughts. What is your absolute favourite movie from the class of '76? Did you rent any of these on a dusty old tape back in the day? Let's talk in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining, and if you enjoyed this fast-paced trip down memory lane, Please do hit that like button, subscribe, and help a tiny channel like this grow. I hope to see you soon. Thank you.